This is a traction series of postures using a wall belt. I call it basically a wall belt, although it is oftentimes technically referred to as a wall rope system, but how I use this is simply a bike hook, a carabiner, and a 10-foot yoga belt so that it changes its size with the belt, quick release belt, or you can use a cinch or a D-ring. And so your props for this traction, back traction series, is this belt, or if you have a wall rope, you can change the size easily. You can use that. You'll need a couple blocks, a sandbag, a bolster, and a blanket at the base of the wall. So have your mat positioned so the short end of the mat is straight down from the hook. And you're stretching your belt away from the wall so it's full range. There's a little bit of a tail, so it's pretty maximized with its range, with a small tail so it won't unravel on you. We'll start with easing the legs hips distance apart, and then reaching your right arm up. In fact, you might feel it's like when you hook your wrist into the belt and lift up the arm. Lift the arm and let the waist lean to your left. Let the left arm traction down. Feel that right arm motion back. You could certainly sample holding the belt versus placing it to your wrist, but feel where that arm lifts and the beginnings of awareness through your side. Yeah, give yourself freedom to step your feet a little bit out and together. Protect your lower back here. Feel the side wave. And then turn away from the wall. Turn to face away from the wall with both arms lifting up so the wrists are supported by the belt. Take a wide stance and then feel when you're lifting through the rib cage that you're facing forward so your head straight between arms. Work to your level of opening in your chest and circulation in the shoulders, and then switch sides. So I'm going to turn to my other side, so my right side is facing towards the wall, and I'm basically pulling straight out from the hook. Explore this. You might step your feet a little bit wider. You might close them in together and step closer to the wall, and feel that left arm. Feel the focus in the side. If it's quite detailed in your shoulder, feel when you hold the belt and you feel that you can pivot that belt behind you a little bit. Okay? So we're doing a minimal amount of this variation before we come down to the floor. And then we'll come back up and use the wall belt for downward dog. Okay. So give a moment here. We're going to bring both hands to take the belt overhead. And you're going to let yourself, as long as your belt is buckled and held, you're going to lean back into it. Get it high up on your shoulder blades and feel where your feet are wide enough. Bend through the knees. Oftentimes, feel when I lower down this, there's some support in my back muscles. So there's the natural curve of your back. So kind of feel that natural arch, not too much. And certainly feel the belly order of motion with the breath. Let your arms dangle. Trust the belt to hold you. If it's sliding, it's not holding you. So be able to push back a little bit with your shoulders, hugging towards the spine. Let your gaze look up to the hook at the wall. And then start to get a feel of your hips moving forward so the front of the thighs lengthen so there's less bend at the knees. Your hands stay back behind you. Shoulders roll gradually. Walk your feet sensitively closer together and lift up the arms. Walk your feet back. Feel where there's maximum restriction with the belt, you can't go any farther. And lift up high through the sides of the waist. Feel that reaching pattern. Lift up to the sky. Now, feel how the core of the ribs, at the peak of the rib bulk, right, the thick back ribs, start to move up in towards opening the chest. And then we reach for the belt, and we're going to come on down to our back. So I want you to start to motion so that as you get out of your belt, you're going to take a seat in front of the wall with your head lowering down on top of the blanket. You want to have all your props nearby with easy reach. And as you lower down, guide your knees into your chest. The belt's going to stay about the same length as you recently had, depending on your range of motion. Okay, so I'm going to scoop up both legs into the belt and study the pressure of my hands at the wall. Study as the hands press. You might get a feel for the balance at the sacrum. It should feel very clear where that bone is in this position. If you feel like you're on your buttocks, then your belt might be too loose. Right? You might need to go higher so you can tighten it down. Give yourself a little bit of sampling of what it's like if your belt is a little bit tighter. See if you can sustain that without feeling an over amount of pressure in your hamstrings. All right, so let's get started with our back traction series, okay? So have your sandbag off to the side. Have some clearance of space besides your mat and open out your arms. Let your eyes center, whether they like to be open or closed, to see what's going on. Begin to let the legs wander from side to side. And feel the awareness that ripples out from the waist and the back muscles. Trust traction. So you only understand this if you are patient with yourself and give yourself time to be sensitive to the movement, loosening up the back. So I would encourage you this first cycle of reclining traction poses to really play with it. Let your knees guide in towards your core. They don't need to hook in all the way. You still want to feel the belt holding your legs, so you don't want to lose that engagement. So I don't want to pull my knees in so I don't feel the belt. So it's not as tight as I could go with the legs. And then as I push out with my feet, and then let the legs guide and glide my back. Sample awareness of going maybe to one side and then a little bit in, a little bit back out, and over. So you might guide your knees to bending and then push out and then guide them back over. Keep it simple and then finalize this rhythm of traction with truly feeling the legs going all the way over to one side. All the way is how much your bones organize that reach. And then feel the opposite side that's open. Feel those ribs try to reach out in towards the arm. So it becomes a deep abdominal pull, very deep in the tummy. When you feel the legs swing over, you can almost feel that the tummy craves this kind of deep twist. It's different than a seated twist for certain, or even a reclining twist. With a bolster, you're able to use the leg traction to swing out from the back. Now as you move the legs back in center this time, slide your left foot out. I would put the knee to point up at first, and then sample a couple of variations here. The left knee draws into the chest, hands just below the knee or under the thigh. And then as that right leg moves out, you can let the leg on the left side also move open. So it's external rotation. Even if this is a flexible part of you, it's a good place to focus on the circulation, the rhythm of flow through the lymph in the groins. So you might massage that area a little bit while you're in the pose, especially starting from the spot of the inside. Well, it's not inside the back of my right knee I'm touching. It's really along the inner lining. Sometimes you can find that with your hands. It's an actual lining spot. There's a line there of where they're sewn together sometimes, and think of that as a spot that you're focusing on, motioning towards the very deep groin, okay? Now part of this is letting yourself trust the traction. So if this is too much, what I would recommend you do is to use your blocks. So you can put one in underneath your outer left hip. Even if you hold your knee, that could be supportive. You might notice the difference and the vulnerability of your sacrum. It's pretty subtle, but it's useful. And let's say this right leg goes out quite easily. You can also use your block over at the same spot on the right thigh. So you're kind of held. So let the body receive. Right? So feel if you've got two blocks flat setting, pinned at the sides of your hips. You might not need your arms. They might be available to release tension. Anything you don't have to rely on pulling with. Receive your breath on that in-breath for 4 counts through the nose. Out-breath for 5, relaxing out of the mouth. Okay, now as you motion your right leg back center, left leg stretches straight down. Let it be a straight shot. Slide the left leg straight down from the hip as far as you know it's straight. Relax the foot and then cross the right leg over to the left. My tendency is to let my body roll a little bit left, so I'm on the outer left foot, right? But I keep my right shoulder down. If you can't keep your shoulder down, pull your blanket in a little bit lower underneath your head towards your shoulders. And maybe you'll put a towel under your right arm to kind of bring a little bit of a buffer, okay? This should feel pretty good, this traction for your hip. Now we move the right leg back center. We guide the left foot up and cross it to the top of the right thigh. And then we bend the right knee. Now this is where you might hook your foot under, hook the belt under your foot versus the actual back of the leg. So you have kind of this interesting balancing act of fluidity through the joints. You can kind of see that crafting if the foot has a place to be naturally flexed. It doesn't have to be articulated, but it's a natural range there. And you can be in this reclining pigeon pose for as long as it feels useful. Any of these shapes you could remain longer or do more repetitions. This gives you a nice sequencing that you can pick and choose from and then make your own notes, what works for you. Now I try to feel where that right foot is kind of relaxing into the belt. I'm not trying to force much more pressure. Okay, but the left hip is being prompted. Now the left hip might not want to work deeper, but we're going to get it right into it. So you're going to take your belt off your foot, hold it with your left hand, lower the right leg down, and start to move any block away from the side of your hip. You're going to take your bolster on the right side, okay? And you're going to reach your left leg on top of that bolster, across. Now the right arm holding the belt is an option. You don't have to use this. But if you are going to use that and repeat that flow in the shoulder and chest, you might take a break from it and get your sandbag and layer that across that outer left thigh. Okay? I get back into my belt, but all I do is hold my arm in the belt, the wrist, without gripping. No clenching, releasing. Feel the crossover through the leg. Feel the turn in the brain. Restoring your hip, even if it's rather intense. Take notice to areas that you can refine the intelligent balance. Maybe your left shoulder is gripping up and you could remind it to release down. If it's too much in the belt, don't use it. Pass on it, hand on floor. But you might grow to like that with the arm. Okay, now as I start to guide out, I'm giving you a kind of a short amount of time in each of the shapes. So if you decide to go longer, take more time. But as I switch this sandbag off the left outer leg, I'm going to start to take it into the second side. So I lift up my left leg into the belt, open it out. I've already got my block there. It's pretty easy. I've got a block on this right, pinned up next to my right hip. Right knee open, hold on. Now you can hold the inside layer of the knee. You can hold inside the thigh, but this left inner thigh is loosening up. If your knee tends to kind of push through, guide it into a micro bend, but instead of bending and tightening the back of the knee deeper, try to keep the inner lining of that left leg reaching. It's almost as if you want to connect to your tailbone, flat as the back is right now, and relax there. Feel. You know, keep that work going and continuous through the inner leg. Now when I move my thigh across, if this feels quite productive for your thigh and you're loosening up deeper, you can always stay longer. Okay? Now as we carry along, if it's your choice to move along, right leg goes straight down, and I try to keep my hip headlights towards the sky to start. So I use gravity to let my left leg really hang in that belt. Cross it over. Feel the outer right foot on the floor cross over that left leg. traction is inevitably going to happen in your lower back here. So if bending the knee feels nice in the stretch of the buttock, that could be useful. Anything goes almost on these traction poses. If it seems like you get a creative burst to try something, go for it. As long as you feel in control and balanced enough. And then as that leg moves back in center, we bring the right foot up to the base of the left thigh. You could bend your knee with the belt still at your leg. You likely are going to have to get a little bit creative getting the belt under your foot. So you might have to get out of the pose, move out, get your foot in the belt, cross the leg over to the space right at the left knee. And then bend your knees and feel that round of your lower back, that scoop. If you held behind the left leg here, I doubt it would bring you much more depth. However, it would connect to your right inner thigh with the elbow applying pressure. But if that's what's of interest to you, what you might work with is a block pressing to the inside of the right knee. This one seems okie dokie to have simply here. Part of this is a practice of, using a single prop as the main focus. That's from the wall for traction, for the joints, for the muscles, to have a greater range. Okay, now get that feel for that right knee bending, the right hip awakening. And here's what you might do is you switch out the sides. You could bring your right foot into the belt, hook your lower leg bones into that belt, and then move your bolster to the left. It's got to go at some point. You certainly could do this without a bolster. It could be a blanket stacked, some towels. Okay, and then my left leg goes down. I unhook the belt, hold it with my right hand to start, cross the right leg to the left. So the right arm deal is about connectivity to the right leg, okay? So once you have that awareness kind of percolating, the connecting, the connections, the dots that connect, add your sand sack to the exterior where it feels good. That good might be close to the knee, it might be right in the center of the thigh. But when you're in the pattern, turn your head right, get into the thick of it. If it feels really stiff in the back of the hip, spend some time working towards pushing that right leg a little farther downstream. Okay, so you get a feel for the connectivity through the hip. Now as we start to take off the sand, I want us to continue this domineering focus to the hips, and there's a couple ways you could do bridge pose. One way is to hook the feet into the belt again, and it's on the base of the leg, and to lift up push down into your feet, lift up your hips and snug that block under the back of the pelvis. You have that lift, right? This is certainly an elongated version of this pose, right? Because the knees are not pressurized at all. Now I can bend my knees to make it more of that right angle. So I want you to feel the insides of the feet press, okay? Try to take the feet apart. They slide together naturally. So this is something to complete that reclining traction practice with the belt under the lower legs and place a block. Okay? Now, if you push the legs out to straight, feel the arms down below, the chest open. Take a snapshot of this sensation in your back for your memory. And then bend your knees. Okay, now to get out could be different, right? You could kind of work your way so that the feet are on the belt, right? So you can push out, push in. It's helpful to play with the belt. Okay, so my feet are controlling the interaction of the back of my legs. Now, try to keep the feet working equally, and you're in a bit of a jam here. You want your feet and the muscles in the legs to collaborate. So your buns are very toned, okay? Toning buns. So I push forward into the belt. I lift up my buttocks off the block. Try to make this happen for a few moments without clenching at your shoulders or your neck. Slide the block away. Okay, you want to have your blocks out to your sides. And then lower the spine down. Notice that clenching, how it was kind of unified on both buttocks. And then knees to chest, take off the belt. So you're going to actually turn and face so that your feet are at the wall now. Okay? Move the blanket. If you like it under your head, use that or have it nearby, just in extra case you need it. Okay, so we'll sample some work here at the wall. I want you to get a feel here when you're utilizing the wall support that you have your legs at a right angle. Now you could use your belt for your bridge pose. There's a couple ways to use that. We're going to let it be kind of on the side. If it's bothering you, you can always put it back up around the hook for the next short time, okay? But we'll be interchanging with it. So just let that distraction be part of your practice, the belt. So we take a block, we place it center of the knees, and as we push directly into the wall, you want to be close, but not so close that when you lift up your hips, your spine motion until you climb up onto your shoulders. Arms overhead. Try not to turn your head at all here. And then lower your spine down. Alternate these motions, lifting back up and over, lower down the spine. Push into your feet, tone the buttocks, hold the block. Okay, now last time when we lift up, feel that underlying current in the low back flesh. Move your arms down, move the block and place it under your sacrum. So you might feel the block flat is good. And then kick the feet straight up. Okay? So we've got our legs up. We have some simplicity in the low back as it is elevated and supported. So I want you to try to distribute the circulation in the back body. We'll let this accumulate over time, right? The accumulation of reversing the flow of gravity in the legs. You can put a blanket under your head if it's more comfortable. Sometimes it's nice to have the definition here. In your back, open out the elbows. Okay, now there's a few versions of this we can cover. We can be here. No change necessary. You can be with that one. Another version would be to lower my feet down. I'm not too close to the wall. I can touch the floor. And then I'll scoot the block out for a moment and actually get myself closer to the wall. You might have to roll to the side to get the touch. And I want you to bring your feet through the belt, so I'm not completely at the wall right now. I'm pretty close, but I'm not ambitious to get to the wall all the way. Close enough is fine. Okay. So, when you're here, what I want you to do is let the legs go inside the belt and then push out. Okay. Let the belt hook just below the knee, so it's not hooking deeply in the back of the knee. If I look at the belt hook, it's the center of my leg basically. Okay? So my feet rest into the wall. Leg muscles are very satisfied. Okay, so there's definitely a soothing position. Okay? Interlace fingers, push palms overhead. Let the arms hover over the floor. Let the back of your head relax. This might be one where you like a blanket under your head. It's quite natural, that cushion under the brain is soothing. Now feel the dynamic of the legs outwards. So we'll keep that dynamic, however, we're going to bring our feet together. Okay? So, my legs are inside the belt. There's not a scientific change to this quite yet. Okay? You're going to bend your knees so your feet are wide. Okay? It's about not quite my full bending pattern. Okay, and then I'm going to actually take my feet off the wall, kick them out. You can let go of your hands if you like, and then reach my feet together in front of the belt. Big deal. And then feet come together and slide down the wall. Okay, so it's a connected Supta Baddha Konasana. Very nice for the inner thigh muscles. Yeah, quite helpful. So my blocks could be under each leg. Take props, use the support. Okay, my blocks are going to be quite tucked in, so I almost kind of pin them into my hips. I just don't want to lose my belt, because it took a while to get that perfect, huh? And play with it again. If you lose the side of it, rewind, watch it again. It does take some practice to get the Supta Baddha Konasana in the belt. It just takes repetition and not getting it the first or second or third time. Now my feet are open, but I'm not trying to slam the soles shut. They're definitely open. Okay. So my hands are going to go to my thighs. I'm protecting my knees. I'm focusing on the inner thigh. Push the hands into the legs. Stretch out through the groins. Try to keep the sacrum so it's relaxed. If that means it's on the floor or it's a little bit above the floor, it's individual. Now your inner thighs are likely feeling this. Okay. So as we get out of this, you'll figure out a way to unravel your ankles out of this belt. Okay, as you get out, you're going to bring the legs to relax back up at the wall. Let's take our sand. If you want to get closer to the wall, you can. In fact, what you could do is slide in your block at the second height, get the legs closer, place them to the wall, or add a sandbag. If you've got a block, it's going to be a little tricky to get your sand on, a little bit of balance trick. But it can happen, it just takes practice. Probably the low height will be easier to get that first thing when you first try it. But let it be so there's space away from the wall right now. Okay? Position the shoulders down and the palms open towards the wall. Shoulders back. Release. Feel the busy traction in your calves. Okay, now feel the muscle awareness above the knees just gliding down to your hips. Let that loosen up your hips. Belly full, belly calm. Now as we start to bend the knees, you could be here longer. If you prefer, you've got to remove the sand first. So it can go overhead, then your feet to the wall, lift up, take the block out, and roll to the side. And as you come up, I want you to sit so that your blanket is pivoting from under your head to the, when you look away from the wall to the right side of your mat, and you want to sit up on that blanket. You might need 2 blankets for this. We're going to do a side reaching pose, Pravrita Janu Shirshasana. So this is a nice side stretch, and it's a leg depth position. So I'm going to get as close to the wall as I need to for my left foot to push into the wall. I can easily grab the belt. Now, as you recall in the beginning, we had that standing shape where we held the belt and leaned. So let's do that again. Let's reach with the right hand to the belt, over, okay? And then as I lean, I'm going to try to stretch that right arm out and let the left arm release down. Now, door 1 is here. Door 2 is to add your sand bag to the upper inner right thigh. Be cautious of the knee angle. In fact, take it easy. You might put the block so it's under the thigh and the leg is kind of lounging out. It's not being clipped into the groins. So I want you to focus on the side flesh, so the back muscles ease, the motion through the ribs. And what's up with the pelvis, right? Is it kind of stuck? Is it able to motion in the position? Or is it a fixture, like if it's a stuck place in the body? You might revolutionize that a little bit and move right arm towards the wall, right arm opens. So you're actually connecting from the pelvis through the spine as much as your side layer. Yeah. I think of the shapes of these poses as learning the structure, learning the classics, and then feeling them in my body and changing them so that it feels like, not necessarily always good in the pose, but I notice that this one might rub off on me later after the practice. It has like some residue. So this is a good one. I like this with the belt over. If it's hurting your shoulder like this, use your lower arm to hold the belt. One other thing that might be useful is if your belt could be shortened, and you can let this arm actually hang in the belt, right arm behind your back. Yeah, just make sure the left arm isn't too low, right? You don't want it to be so low that your neck is now starting to feel like it's kind of crimping in towards your chest, your chin. So breathe here. And now we're going to switch sides at your leisure. So one thing you might do between these 2 sides is a little cat-cow. It's pretty easy. We take off our sand, remove our block. You turn so your knees are on your blanket. Hands, knees, feet could be touching the wall would be a right way to do this. Shoulders supported and round your back. If your feet aren't touching the wall, it's okay. Fluidity, alternating, rounding, arching, cat-cow. Mobilize Bring your hands under, toes under, lift up the knees, downward dog, heels up at the wall, push the floor away. Ensure that the heels are elevated, and then as you stretch the bottom of the foot, come back down. You're going to switch your side reach. The blanket's over now on the left side of your mat. You're going to stretch down to sit onto that blanket, right foot at the wall. Be sure you're close enough that the right leg is straight. You might have to line up yourself so you can look at the hook in the center. Easy reach. Block under left knee, maybe for some. Sand on the upper left thigh. Guide your right arm to hold down. It could be this one, right, where your elbow's in the belt. And it's pretty nice. Left arm behind the back. Okay. Guide the shape of the spine. Traction. Loosen up. Or left arm back, right arm inside. Feel where the head is comfortable, the neck is comfortable. Remember, traction is key here. This is a traction class. Okay, now feeling where that left arm is motioning. Okay, you can change it out for the arm, balancing in the belt as well. Arm is up or arm is back. Now when you come up, now you can keep there as long as you like. If it's therapeutic and you want to stay with this side reach, stay longer. But we're going to complete the series here by doing some full body pose, traction, symmetry. So I want you to come back. If you need the blanket, place it under the knees. But otherwise, you're going to push back, toes, and then let your feet walk towards your hands, or your hands walk to your feet of the two. And then as you move into your feet, you're going to get your blanket. Carefully craft your spine up to standing. Stand a moment as the blood pressure has shifted. And then you're going to take your belt at the wall and shorten it up. Now what I do, since this traction, I have to change the length of the belt for these two different types of practices. One with the legs in the belt swinging off the wall, one with downward dog pose, which is a fundamental daily pose with a wall rope for myself. Or wall belt, is I measure it so that it's at the right length for me. I put like just a piece of masking tape so I know it's measured. Now what you're going to do for this measurement is it's quite a bit shorter than you had, okay? Now how do I know? So I'm going to tighten it up, you know, a good foot from where you had it a moment ago. And then you're going to bring it around you and gather your blanket. So it's in just a square fold. It's not, doesn't have to be quarter fold. You want it to get easily on both sides of your body, your legs and in your waist. Okay. All right, so prepare. You're going to fold the blanket over. You need a blanket or a towel on your belt. Okay. They do make some that are actually they just wrap around and Velcro, so that's something to look into. It's worth it. So you step your feet apart, and then how far do I need to be from the wall? I'm going to step out, reach my hand. I should be able to let my hand touch the wall. If I can't touch the wall, my belt is too long. Okay, so you're going to find out. You're going into dog pose from standing, not from on your all fours. The difference. So I lift up my ribs, hips distance feet, away from the wall, heels are not touching. And I lean into the belt and make sure it's buckled, it's connected. The buckle is not next to my hip, so it's not gonna break apart. okay? And then I lean forwards, bend my knees, this is important, so the tush pushes back, and then the arms flow down, and you walk your heels to the wall. Okay, arms reach. You want to get some real full reach here. The hands extend, traction. Now, I don't deny this one takes a few times to get the spacing of the belt right. So it's not always that easy as shown. But you do want to feel that the back of the body is stretching from the calf to the sitting bones, not necessarily a deep, agonizing pull, but you feel that there's an experience of opening. That's kind of what stretching is, huh? So when I reach my hands out wide, they could open out. If I trust this one quite a bit, I could bring my arms behind me, interlace my fingers, stretch them over, head nods. I likely assume you're going to let your elbows relax and giving your body permission to invert. Reverse the flow of gravity to the brain. If your head is touching the floor now, your belt is too long, okay? It's not necessarily a non-goal. One goal of this one could be to have your head on your bolster, so you're relaxed. It's kind of soothing to my neck, my forehead on the bolster, okay? If you're really trusting your balance, use your hands under your shoulders. Bring your feet up one at a time to the wall, so you're in child's pose. And you might find that the crown of your head touches, okay, or it's so close. If you've got enough space from the floor, you can hold your elbows. That depends on how your belt is holding you up or how high it is up on the wall. Now hands slide back. That one you could be in for a good 5 minutes. Pretty nice. It's similar to a headstand in the belt. Okay? So as we walk our feet towards our hands towards our feet, be here, elbows held by hands, standing forward fold, Uttanasana. Release the low back, massage the organs. Now feel the arms dangle, and bending into your knees, you're going to round your back. You can stay there as long as you like, but we're coming to a full round of poses. Lift the shoulders, roll them back. Gently stand on your feet and notice the knees. Can you press into your heel bones, and so you feel all the way up into your buttock bones. Step the feet so they're apart and comfortable. Let the shoulders roll back. Thank you for sharing this practice. I hope that was interesting. There are several ways you can work with these wall rope system. There's several different styles of rope systems, but this is extremely simple to use. If you can get a hook in the wall, basically a bike hook. The carabiner does help with the belt, so you can get him through. Unless you have a hook that's wide enough, you can connect the buckle. That's the issue with that. But when you have this traction system, you can be really creative with poses, right? You could start working with shapes like triangle pose, right? You can play with ways of using the blanket, stepping into the belt, working with lengthening positions, standing, holding the belt, foot to the wall, so forth. and really working with that base leg being under the hip. This is another good way to work with your balance, your tree pose. So there's quite a few variations that I've worked with, and one that I used to enjoy doing quite a bit was the pigeon pose. Right, so if you're here, you might work a little bit further and further, eventually maybe put the foot across, okay? And then it basically lays into the belt, and you have this very deep balance and traction multiplied in your hip. So I would explore it. I would be a little cautious on some of those balancing maneuvers, but the nice thing about them is if you can do it and you can stay in it, it's very nourishing to the strength in your hip. And if you can't get into it, then it's really not meant to be for that pigeon shape, but it's a pretty deep balanced strength position. All right, until we meet again, namaste.